Welcome to the Suitcase and the Scribe with award-winning journalist Scott Burnside and former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna, a member of the Nation Network of podcasts and delivered by DoorDash.
Hey everybody, Scott Burnside here, along with, as always, Mike McKenna. Another edition of the Suitcase and the Scribe. Mike, before we get going, I have to give props to Mike Maniscalco of the Carolina Hurricanes, the fine play-by-play voice of the Canes. I'm in Raleigh, do a little stuff this week. Mike's not here, but I'm squatting in his office, so a little bit of, mixing it up a bit. And I've made myself at home. Mike's still recovering from the Hurricanes' road trip to Dallas, a disappointing setback for them on the road. But anyway, that's where I'm at. How are things going for you? Did you have a good Thanksgiving, my friend?
Oh, yes. And thanks for asking, being the American of the two of us on here. But you're such an honorary American at this point, Scott. You are an American, correct?
Dude, I've been a U.S. citizen for like a decade and a half.
Yeah.
I'm fully invested.
Yeah. Like you're basically like Bob Dylan, man. Like you're an American, but no, Thanksgiving was awesome. It wasn't a big celebration, had family over, smoked a turkey, didn't overcook it. Like it was all the traditional things. It was great. And, November was a lot of fun. And, I decided to keep my mustache for another couple days here, just because I feel very regal with it, Scott. But, it's very kind of the Hurricanes to allow you to have that space. One, you look terrific on camera, and two, it's just a very, very nice backdrop, and we should be very thankful to them.
It's got great lighting. There's no question about it. But when I see your mustache, the last time I had a mustache, I believe it might have been my first year of university, Carleton University in Ottawa. I was 18. And every once in a while, I'll come across a picture and I'll be like, no, that's not for me. So
it was very on brand for the times, was it not, Scott?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, Essex County boy, yeah. I was doing what I could. So, all right, we got so much going on. I'm so excited. So it never fails that there's all kinds of news to talk about. But Manon Rhéaume is going to join us. Your longtime pal. You've had a long connection with Manon. In fact, I don't know. She won't probably remember, but I did a story on her during the final she was in Tampa, 2015. So. But just what an incredible woman, what an incredible story. So can't wait to talk to her. She's doing color for or analysis for the Red Wings. Big win for them as well. And we're going to touch on what's going on in Boston. But let's set the stage, talk about Thanksgiving, pretty good post-Thanksgiving for the Hughes family, and specifically Jack Hughes. I was going to say former number one pick, but that drives Frank Seravalli crazy. He's not a former number one pick. He was a number one overall pick, which is true. I try not to put that in my copy. 8 years, $8 million. I totally understand, right? It's the marketplace. The market is what it is, even in a flat cap world. And I've known Tom Fitzgerald, the GM in New Jersey, in a long time. And I Tom's doing the job in New Jersey. I don't know if they're there yet. They get pounded last night by San Jose. They're not quite there yet, but big steps. Dougie Hamilton signing in the offseason. That's a big bite there and a big commitment. And this is the same for me. 8 times 8. He's played 120 games, according to HockeyDB.com, 55 points. That's not a lot. And I don't know. Like I get you're not signing him so he'll score, 3 goals against the Sharks, although it would have been nice. But I don't know. Tell me, I'm not gonna throw Jack Hughes under the bus. It's way, way too early. I totally understand that part. But man, that's a big contract to live up to for a young man who, really struggled in his rookie year. He has yet to find his real groove. There've been some injuries. Man, it just seems like a lot early on for Jack Hughes. But what do you think?
There is so much hoping going on with this contract. And I don't know who's driving force behind it. I don't know whether the Hughes camp went to the Devils and said, hey, I want to be here. Let's lock it down. I don't know if it was converse. I don't know if Devils ownership said this is a linchpin player that we need to take any question marks out of it and make him one of our own. Nico Heischer's tied up on a long-term contract as well. So I can understand from the perspective of the team that we want to have our top two centers locked down.
Yep.
But 8 times 8 for a guy that's got 55 points in 120 games. And I understand that his game was trending the right way, but the sample size is so small. I mean, and this is territory where a couple of years ago, we were talking about maybe a 2 or 3 year bridge deal, like low level bridge deal, not even high level bridge deal, like a couple $1 million bridge, to all of a sudden 8 times 8. And I always have trepidation for these contracts because they can blow up in a manager's face so hard and so fast. Yeah. And this could be an albatross down the road, but it also, from the team perspective, once again, could be a value. But how many value contracts do we really see? I mean, Brad Marchand's one that comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, Will Carlson in Vegas is another. They exist.
Nathan McKinnon's coming off a pretty darn good bargain for the Colorado Avalanche. Right. But you're right. It's also, well, and let me ask you, because to me, and it takes a special player. He's a special player, right? We've been told that all the way along. I believe it must be true on some level. He's not a special NHL player yet. He may yet be that player, and he may be that sooner than later, and certainly the Devils hope so. But all of a sudden, I think of Mitch Marner in Toronto, and I think of the pressure that comes now to any young player, any 19, 20, 21-year-old. How old is Jack Hughes, right? I mean, he's a boy.
Right. I mean,
the pressure
he's
now,
20 years old. He's 20.
So the pressure on a 20-year-old boy, to live up to a new 8 times 8, it's the term and the dollar, right? It can be crushing. Maybe it will not be crushing for Jack Hughes, but the potential's there. And I think of, in Mitch Marner, completely different media market. But you think about, it's not just that Mitch Marner, doesn't score in the playoffs or he gets off to a slow start. He's, whatever, is it $10 million? Whatever the number, the contract, it's a lot. The contract attaches itself to a young player like in, I didn't really see them, but isn't that the Venom thing, that Marvel thing where the suit gets on the, and it's part of their person. The contract's like that. Mm-hmm. Are you with me on that, Venom?
I got you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
You have to wear the contract and you've got to play up to it now. Here you go. You won it. You got it. But I'm just shocked at how negotiations went. I thought I could have seen like, hey, we'll give you 6 times 8. I'm blown away by this. Like I was looking around for comparables and I really couldn't find anything to me as for a 20-year-old player in an entry level that hasn't really knocked the door down. I couldn't find anything. Like the closest thing I could think of was Thomas Chabot, and he's a defenseman, on the 8x8, and he'd already really proven he was a top tier D man in the league. And again, it's apples to oranges, centerman to defenseman, but frankly, I think it's unprecedented. So it's a gamble. It's a risk. That I'm risk averse in general, economics major, I conservatively with money and things, but good for Jack Hughes, man. Like I tell you what, that Hughes family, you talk about building a home on a golf course. I think they can build the golf course at this point.
Yeah, I will only say this, and I'm just looking at the Devils roster on Cap Friendly, and oh my gosh, they are young, but there's so much to. I really do like what they're doing there, and now they're hanging around. They're still hanging around the the playoff bubble. But Dawson Mercer on the edge of the Calder Trophy discussion is so good there. All those kids. Jesper Bratz. Feels like he's been around forever. He's 23. I don't know. I like what they're doing there, and I get. And let me ask it this way, and then we can move on. But don't you also think some of this has to do with the marketplace, right? I mean, New Jersey it's not a destination place, right? In the traditional way that Vegas or Pittsburgh for the last, since Sid came in, of course, the big markets, Philly, Toronto, it's not a destination place. And by landing Dougie Hamilton, I think, I mean, there's a certain element of, well, okay, let's lock our guys up so that we're not chasing. And I think that's been the challenge in New Jersey, after Lou left and then Ray Shiro came in and now Tom Fitzgerald is there. Challenge is got to lock that core up, as it is for every team, I suppose. But I think it's harder in a market like New Jersey. Agree? Disagree?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I've played for the Devils. I know what it's like to be there. And it's like anything. Like, you can find a nice place to live. You're right by New York City, but it's not the fashionable place to play. Everybody wants to play for the Rangers, know, Broadway, like it's MSG. Like, you don't think of the Prudential Center in downtown Newark, New Jersey as the place that you want to go, especially after dark. Okay. And that's just reality. Like, you get out of there and you get on the train and you get out of town. And it's just different in that way. But the selling point for New Jersey are the things that you mentioned. This is a team that has real young talent that is really good. It's real. They need their D to start to develop a little bit more. They need to tighten up defensively, but they've got a good young goalie in Blackwood. They've got a supporting goalie in Bernier. The scoring, like you said, Brad's been around, Sharangovich. You're going to have Heischer and Mercer and Hughes as well. I mean, we're going down the list here of pretty good players, and it is a real perception thing. I mean, Taylor Hall didn't want to be there. He also didn't believe in where the team was headed. That was a key factor. I get that, but let's not joke around. Like, I don't think Jersey is that big destination, but it's but if you build the right culture, if you get people to buy in, this is what you need. So there is a selling aspect to that. And I look elsewhere. Let's look at Montreal, for example. Okay, let's pivot to there and think
nothing going on there.
Nothing's going on there. You talk about a culture that's way off right now.
Yeah.
You get players talking about it behind closed doors going, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going on. And it's been like that for like an easy month. And they finally get movement. Mark Bergevin's fired. They fire the PR guy. They get rid of the head scout. Like, Mellenby resigns, like total chaos. And then Jeff Molson, by the way, St. Lawrence class of 92, so fellow Laurentian, comes
They're
out
everywhere.
But Jeff Molson comes out and says, we need to change top-down management. We need a refresh. And they end up hiring Jeff Gordon from the New York Rangers to oversee the hockey department, not to be the general manager, mind you.
Yeah.
Jeff Gordon only speaks English. He can't be the general manager, but he can oversee things. And our Frank Saravalli at Daily Faceoff made the point that this might be a unique structure where Gordon's doing a lot of the managing from the top down in conjunction with whoever may be hired as the general manager that can speak French. Where do you see this going? What names are you hearing associated with it, Scott?
Yeah, well, and I've got I think for some people who maybe aren't familiar with the Montreal marketplace, maybe they are anti-French, whatever it is. I think there is often a rush to judgment about when a team comes. I give Jeff Molson all kinds of credit. He's very candid. They're not hiring an Anglo GM, and just as it's hard to imagine an Anglophone head coach. So does it dramatically narrow the pool from which you can draw and build a Stanley Cup winner? Yeah, of course it does. But that's Montreal, and I get it. That market demands it, and so they shall have it. But and Frank's point is an excellent one. Jeff Gordon is like the perfect end around. He's going to be the de facto GM, at least on many levels. He's going to make significant hockey decisions at some point. Like, honestly, like poor Dominic Ducharme there. I don't know. To me, it looks like a man who's overmatched as a head coach. So, if there is a coaching change at some point between now and the start of next season, Jeff Gordon will be the man with his hands on the levers there. At some point, they're going to hire a GM. It might be Matthew Darsh in Tampa, director of player personnel. That I talked to another executive this week, and he liked Matthew Darsh as the guy.
Yeah.
Daniel Briere's name has come up. Patrick Roy's name. I like him more as a coach there, frankly. But
Patrick Roy put his name in the ring. Let's put it that way. Okay, why not try me? What do they have to lose?
He's not wrong, maybe, but I'm not. I guess, and I'm wondering what you think of it. But to me, the absolute key to this is it can't just be, well, let's hire a French guy and make him go out and talk to the media. Well, no, it's going to be a hockey person who has command of the French language, can communicate to the fan base through a media market that is unlike any, I would argue, unlike any other in pro sports anywhere. Yeah. It's just so different there. So you have to have a smart guy, and they have to work together. Do you like it? Are you on board?
I'm fine. I am not a big guy when it comes to groupthink, but I do think having an overseeing president of hockey operations, whatever you may title that, has a significant amount of value. It is a check in place, and like it would do Jeff Gorton a big favor to learn a little French while he's there. We expect people to come and learn English. He can learn some French. I bet he will, knowing his personality. I think that'll happen. Yep. But I do think we need to go throw caution to the wind here, acting like there's not French Canadian or French speaking people that can't fill this role. Like there are
men and women,
hundreds of intelligent French Canadian people that can fill this role as general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. Okay.
Men or women. So, yeah, that's right. Yep.
But to your point here, like the names that have been thrown out, Roberto Luongo, I don't think he's going to leave Florida. He's a goalie guy. He's never done management on a big scale. Danny Briere, he's day-to-day operations of an ECHL team, not really the general manager. Danny Briere doesn't have front office experience. As much as I love him, I would be shocked at that hire. Marty Lapointe, that's an in-house hire if the Montreal Canadiens were to move him up from a role. He's currently the director of player personnel and amateur scouting. Given Jeff Molson's comments, I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this from my perspective, from somebody that I know on a personal level that I've worked with at the minor league union at the PHPA. And I've seen what he's done at the NHLPA when it comes to CBA negotiations. And this is Matthew Darche. And you talked about him briefly. And this is a guy who's not just going to fill that role. This is a hockey person who understands, who can be progressive. He can be innovative. He went to McGill University as a degree in commerce. He came out of school, worked in international supply chains while being an analyst on RDS, learning the league again for another 6 years while playing, then being hired by Julien Brisebois because Julien Brisebois believes in Matthew Darche and remembered him from CBA negotiations. Like, this is a guy who fits the bill here. Yeah. Okay. And I know it sounds like I'm kind of beating the drum for him, but like, I don't see a better candidate. I see this as somebody who I think could succeed in this role, Scott. Yeah. And I have a sense of Matthew Darche that he would be very good at this. And I think that he could work for you, especially knowing his personality. Like, I'm not going to pretend like we're best friends or anything, but I've at least been in a boardroom with him. I know that this is a person that can get results and do it in a way that players will respond to today. Because that's a huge aspect, isn't it, Scott? Like, the players have to buy into their leadership.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of work to do there, right? I mean, the whole. And not all of it's Marc Bergevin's fault. Not all of it's Dominic Ducharme's fault. I mean, the whole, Carey Price situation, which you and I have talked about, the absence maybe forever of Shea Weber, the departure of Philip Deneau, the departure of Corey Perry,
even Kotkaniemi.
I mean, exactly. I mean, it's
as weird as that was. He's still gone. It's a young talent. Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done there. And I was looking at it. There's not a lot of obvious. It's not a team with 5 or 6 pending UFAs that you try and move at the deadline and then you move on from in the offseason. That roster's constructed. There's just lots of work to do there. The back end is not great, and it's not great because. They haven't had Joel Edmondson for most of the year, no Weber. It's forced Jeff Petrie into a role he's probably not equipped to do every night. Anyway, there's a lot of work there. And if it's Matthew Darche and Jeff Gordon, man, they will have to hit the ground running. So it'll be interesting.
There'd have to be a couple key signings for sure. Like, they'd have to build 1 or 2 key signings, but I think they can change that team with it quickly. I really do. But that's just my outside belief.
Now, tell me, how's your French, by the way?
Je parle un peu français, mais ce n'est pas bon. Je m'appelle Mike, j'adore jouer au hockey. Je suis un gardien de but. I think I just said I was a goaltender. I think. I think so.
I don't know.
We're going to get roasted by our French-speaking listeners here.
I wonder if there is. How's this for a segue? I wonder if you could use DoorDash to get like traditional French food, like a tortillere or, stuff like what else? Poutine. I haven't
Poutine,
had.
maybe.
I will admit, maybe you've never done this, but I have been to Montreal a few times, and sometimes late at night, there is nothing better than poutine. So,
but it has to have the real cheese curds.
Oh yeah, no,
you can't just be the mozzarella slapped on top.
No, it's got to be real. Anyway, as you probably know, DoorDash is the proud sponsor of the Nation Network of podcasts, restaurants, and more delivered right to your door. We'll do a little research, see if you can get some tortilla or some. I'm for sure you can get poutine delivered, but you're right. It has to be quality poutine. So.
Yep, it's not like the streets of St. John's where they just whip out the fries and the gravy out of a can and a big batch of mozzarella. But I tell you what, even on George Street in St. John's, that brutal version of poutine tastes pretty good at about 3 a.m. Man.
Anyway, it's a story for another day. I spent the week after 9/11. I was in St. John's, Newfoundland. I was waiting for the Leafs to arrive for training camp, and they, of course, never showed up after 9/11. And I spent the week there along with hundreds and hundreds of travelers who were stranded from all over the world. In fact, it's that period of time when I was there is the source of a Broadway play, I believe, From Away. It's all kinds of
what
stuff.
A unique thing to be a part of.
It was incredible. Yeah, it was great. All right. I wondered, and since I'm in Carolina, I have not asked Rod Brindamore his feelings on having to shell out $25,000 for sharing his opinions on a call in Sunday's game against the Washington Capitals. But anyway, he did get a $25,000 slap on the wrist from the NHL. I didn't think it was that bad, actually. And I'm not saying this because I'm using Mike Maniscalco's office. Not totally. The problem was, like, he wasn't. There was a penalty for slashing, and now I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, broke the stick of a Washington player. It's a penalty, but the play is offside. The play is dead. It does not. That slash never happens if the officials make the right call to begin with, but they don't. They take the penalty. They end up. That game was dynamite. It was a really good hockey game, and the penalties ended up killing the Hurricanes in the third period. The Caps took advantage and ended up winning an important divisional game. And now Rod Brindamore's $25,000 later. I get the NHL. The NHL can't have its coaches or officials anywhere bad-mouthing its people. I get that, but I don't know. What do you feel?
Well, it's the funniest thing in the world to me that a coach can get dinged for 25 G's for being animated on the bench, not saying anything derogatory on a personal level to a referee.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a player can stick a guy in the balls and only get suspended. You only pay $5,000 worth of fine. For real, dude, you could literally two-hand a guy or slash a guy and you might get dinged for a couple grand and you're a player making 8 million, 10 million bucks. But the coaching staff who makes significantly less than that, they still make great money. But 25 G's, man, that's a nice used, Honda Pilot or so, you know what I mean? That's reasonable money. And it's the second time it's happened to Rod Brindamore.
Yeah.
And I watched this and I see him on the bench and yes, he's animated, but there was a memo that went out to teams October 18th that said basically, I'm paraphrasing this, but you cannot badmouth our officials. You can't scream at our officials and you cannot be visibly upset at our officials. and they're trying to protect the officials, but how are we taking this passion away from the game? The officials are adults. People know how this works. And I know we're trying to set the precedents. I coach 8U kids. Okay. 8U youth hockey. We can't get referees. Nobody wants to deal with it. But come on, really? You're going to ding them for that. And like you said, I mean, if they had got the call right, it's the hindsight on it is what it is, but it was a penalty. And the first penalty was, the Carolina Hurricanes were already down 5-on-4 and then Aho breaks somebody's stick and now it's 5-on-3. That's just reality. I think Rod was frustrated with his team more than anything.
Yep.
And these types of outbursts are calculated. You know what you're getting into. he's not a dumb guy. He didn't just fly off the handle and look back and go, oh, whatever. Like, I think in these instances, you're trying to get your team going as much.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, and I think it's okay to, he's like, to me, okay, what the message is, yeah, and it's right at the bench, so everyone knows it plays offside. It should have been called offside anyway. So if you just stand there, you're like, well, I mean, you want your players to play with emotion. I think it's okay. Anyway.
Yep.
I feel bad. I'm see if I get some loose change with.
Well, here's the thing: everybody around the league has this huge soft spot for Brind'Amour because they remember him as a player, how he was. They see how he coaches. Yeah. Like, you almost feel bad that this is the guy getting knocked in the wallet, right? Like, it's not like you're the typical habitual offenders you'd expect. Like, if Mike Keenan came out of retirement, you'd think, okay, yeah, he's going to get fined nonstop. He's definitely the guy. And no,
maybe
it's
John Tortorella. Yeah,
Tortorella. Yeah. I don't know, man. It kind of leads us to another topic, though, of fine suspensions and overarching here. To me, the Boston Bruins. There's a lot going on in Boston.
There's a lot going on there. Yes,
there's a lot going on in Boston for a team that is really trying to make a push and get back into the playoff picture. They're only 3 points out of a wild card spot currently. Yep. They've battled COVID. Tuukka Rask hasn't been there. Ullmark and Swayman are playing better, but they're missing depth scoring. One of those pieces is Jake DeBrusk, who's asked for a trade. And then you've got Marchand, who's been suspended for slew footing, and comments to Panarin and a glove thrown at him. And like, Bruce Cassidy's in COVID protocol. Providence, the American Hockey League team, is entirely in lockdown. They can't recall anyone. Scott, can they turn this around and make playoffs? No, can they soldier through it and make playoffs, especially missing Brad Marchand? And what do you think of the Slewfoot suspension, the 3 games?
Yeah, I thought it was heavy, really, and I don't like a Slewfoot. That's a dirty play. I don't know who. I saw someone on Twitter, some former player, describe it as the worst play in hockey. I don't know if it is or not, but it's
I can think of worse things.
Yeah, I can think of it's a dirty play, though. And I think the NHL, there's been a whole raft of them. I know Bruins fans were mad because PK Subban's been fined but not suspended. Mm-hmm. It's dangerous to have out there. It's like, okay, let's take that out. And if you have to throw the book at somebody, okay. I don't think Brad Marchand's a bad place to start. So the actual play itself, I didn't think was as bad, but certainly it warranted something. And I'm sick of the whole $5,000 fine. You mentioned Artemi Panarin throwing his glove. It's just a glove. He didn't throw a stick at him. He didn't throw an anvil. He got $5,000. And I watched Josh Morrissey takes a two-hander at Alexander Texier of the Columbus Blues, like a two-hand chop to the leg.
Paul Bunyan, baby, chopping wood here.
$5,000. I'm like, I'm buying a wine. I don't get it.
It's hard to. I mean, I know it's collectively bargained that this is your max for suspension, but I thought the Marchand suspension was warranted. It was the dirty play that. I felt that he. Sometimes I think players feel they can get away with things if they do it in a way that's a little sneaky. And he didn't really use his foot as much as he used his knee to take out Ekman Larsson. And to me, it's the same difference. And, I had this talk the other day, though, that with Tom Sestito, my arch rival on the ice. God, we hated each other. And, we kind of had a fun back and forth on social media about how, he only knew how to play one way. And he played up to the line, and sometimes that line moved. And I thought it was a great line. And I think I might actually reconnect with him about this and kind of hash it out for the fun of it. But that's where Brad Marchand has to play. That's where Rafi Torres had to play. That's where Matt Cook had to play. That's where Brian Marchment had to play. Like, they had to play up to the line to be their best. And sometimes they crossed it. And Brad Marchand's lost almost $1 million in fines. Not fines. I apologize. Not fines. In lost salary. From games. Yeah. But you know what? I think he'd take that all day long. It's an investment in how he plays. It's just what he does. I mean, if he's smart, he's probably racking up $1 million in interest a year alone anyway. But I do think that it's a lot right there. And they didn't win last night. And DeBrusk he wants out, man. He's got Brad Marchand and Taylor Hall ahead of him, and he's thinking, how can I crack this? And he's not scoring.
And this is not the first time that Jake DeBrusk's name has come up in possible trade talks, right? I mean, it has been an uneasy relationship there for the last couple of years. I mean, he scored 27 goals in 18-19, that prototypical power forward type. He's a player that you want, and presumably he's a player that lots of other teams would want too. It's now a question of, the problem of course for Don Sweeney is that now you got to, it's sort of a distressed sale, right? I mean, he's still young. He's 25 years old, so still tons and tons of time, but he wants out. He's got 3 goals in 18 games. He had 5 in 41 last year. I don't know what
scratched recently.
Yeah, I don't know what the value is.
I don't either.
Somebody's going to take him.
Yes.
If there's a deal. But if you're Don Sweeney, and you asked it earlier, and of course I ignored it entirely. I do think the Bruins get back into it. I think they're too good. I think, in spite of their sort of up and down and the, losing Marchand, they lose a critical game to Detroit. It's good for us when we talk to Manon in a few minutes, but I do think this team is gonna get there. And I don't know. Are you bullish on them, or do you have concerns about them?
I could see them treading water. I think if they get Tuukka Rask back, they're real. Yeah, and I feel that's tough on Ullmark and Swayman because they have done a pretty good job. It's been a little bit inconsistent. They've gone in waves, but I just feel like that team's missing its identity in goal. I feel like that's a boost enough for them. And this DeBrusk situation, you don't ever want that. That hangs over your head. You can tell that Kim and Cassidy aren't on the same page. Cassidy's questioned his work ethic, and it looks like the fire's been gone from his game. I mean, he went from, second line to third to fourth to off the power play. And I mean, and let's face it, Boston's missing, David Krejci's not there anymore. Huge piece. They're not as deep down the middle as they once were. I don't know, man.
They missed Torrey Krug, right? Yeah, I mean, and as much as love Charlie McAvoy, he was my Norris pick a year ago. He's a horse, but they missed Torrey Krug, right? They haven't 100%. Really replaced Torrey Krug in that sense. So I'm just looking here. So the path to me, it seems fairly obvious that the Bruins are going to get back in the hunt, and they're going to be a playoff team. It can't be in the Atlantic. It'll have to be as a wild card. They're 6 points back of Tampa right now. Now they have a couple of games in hand, but I think it's unrealistic to expect the Bruins to catch Florida, Toronto, or Tampa. So if you're going in as a wild card. Now you're in that melee with all the teams from the Metro, and they're all, for the most part outside the Islanders, really. Yeah. They're all pretty good. So I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. Now, I love Tuukka Rask, and it's, often misunderstood, I think, and often maligned in Boston. But I'm with you. I think he's one of those people that if he comes back, it solidifies things, and not a knock on Ullmark or Swayman. But I think, frankly, having Tuukka Rask back might be critical to this.
I think so. I really do. And I really, really like Swayman. Prospect. I love his work ethic. I like his drive. I like everything he's done from college on up. I do think it's a lot on the plate for a young guy who didn't play very much pro hockey before being promoted. Yeah. I do believe that. And I think that that's where you see the inconsistency come in. Like, it's harder to find that quicker in your career if you don't have the base of playing professional hockey at the minor league level and learning how to carry the mail. Yeah. And so I have concerns with him. I hope he proves me wrong. I would not bet against him. Ullmark, I just know he's going to get hurt. Like, that's what I'm so scared of, right? Like, he's a good goalie. I really like him, but man, does he get hurt? And Rask gives that an air of legitimacy to that team. I think the outside optics of it, whether it's fair or not, I mean, perception's reality. And I think you feel that in the locker room. And, since we're on the topic of goaltending here, I got something I have to talk about before we flip over to Manon coming on. How about the Matt Murray situation in Ottawa? 4-year contract, $6.25 million a year, signed by Pierre Dorion and crew, and Matt Murray wanted to be part of the Senators, wanted to be part of the rebuild, came over from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it
Yeah.
has not gone well. It didn't go well last year. This year, Matt Murray gets injured. He goes into COVID. He has real symptoms from COVID. He comes back. He's 0-5. He loses one game, but plays pretty well. 33 for 36, one game. And he's on a road trip, and he gets sent to Belleville, and he's told it's a management decision. You're going to Belleville, and he gets no reasoning or plan or communication from the front office on why and how to get back and what to do. I've been there before, Scott. I've had that same lack of communication from that same staff.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen to Mike Condon. Mike Condon was playing hurt for Ottawa. He allows a field goal. He gets sent down. You never see him again.
Yeah.
There's a pattern here, and I don't like it. And I think around the league, players know that this is the case in Ottawa, and it's why they will always struggle to get free agents, because they don't believe they're going to have open, honest lines of communication. Do you agree or disagree with me here?
Yeah,
Am I projecting?
I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk about Matt, because, listen, hey, I don't know why you make that deal, honestly, to begin with. Like,
it's a terrible contract. I'm sorry.
I don't understand it. Like, I don't know where the scouting is.
Great contract for Matt.
Yeah, no, and it's not his fault, right?
Sign it.
Sign it. But it's not. There was little to suggest. Pittsburgh was desperate to move a goaltender. They were desperate to move Matt Murray.
Right.
Anyway. So there's that initial problem, which is why do you go down this road? Like, you could, in my mind, half the term, half the money. Does Matt Murray sign? Probably. And maybe the story is less than it becomes. But the heart of it is your point. What's realistic to expect in terms of communication? What is the professional way to behave? Is Matt Murray owed an explanation? And maybe management in Ottawa, maybe management on other teams don't believe their players are owed that. Maybe at some point, but maybe they don't owe it right away. It's employer, employee, you work for me, you do my bidding, we pay you well, I don't owe you anything. I would like to think that if I was a GM of a team and I was going to make a significant move like this, and understanding it was going to create a lot of discussion, that I would have a talk, that I would prepare the player and his agent, and that this would all be laid out. And even if you don't have a plan, even if you don't say, hey, we want you to take 3, even if you're saying, I don't know if you're ever coming back, then say that. And at least be honest and open about it. And I'm with you. If I'm an NHL player now in a flat cap or salary cap situation, flat or not, and you have choices about where to go, do you go someplace where you feel there's a history of players being mistreated or a lack of honesty?
All they're going to get is refugees at this point. Players looking to reclaim their game. Yeah. And right now, there's not enough players supporting that young core to do anything. They're in last place. I really struggle with this, because I don't think it's the right way to treat your employees at all. And I don't think that's how you get the best out of them. Yeah. You've got a guy that you've invested this much money in, and it's obvious to me that I don't know whether it's management or ownership. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's coming from the top, that there's somebody there that believes if you don't perform, we're going to flush you away. We're going to punish you. And that's how you're supposed to learn and get better. And that's not how this works, man. Like, you put Matt Murray in Belleville, he gets another voice. He gets to work with Justin Peters, who's a longtime professional goalie, who is now the goalie coach there. And, Justin Peters is somebody who I didn't expect to become a goalie coach, but's gotten rave reviews for the work he's done. Came in and interviewed really well for that job and was prepared, really diligent. And maybe this is good for Matt Murray, but you need to tell him, hey, we're going to send you to Belleville. We want you to get your game back. And the thing is, like, why do it after playing? Matt Murray came back from COVID. COVID hit him really hard. He lost the 15 pounds he gained this summer and plays one game and you bury him. Like, why didn't him coming out of COVID protocol, you send him to the American League then on a rehab stint to find his game and come back strong? Like, it's just mismanagement straight up. Like, I don't have any other way to say this. Like, It's frustrating to me to see. And I don't know how Ottawa gets around that. Like, you're going to get refugees and draft picks the rest of your tenure here, especially if you're not willing to spend to the cap.
Yeah. Well, and I before we take a break and then come back with Manon, there's DJ Smith. I've known DJ a long time. He was the captain of the Windsor Spitfires when I made a jump from news to sports. And, DJ is out front of this every day talking about the team. And listen, the team is nowhere near where they should be, right? I mean,
he's out there without water wings, by the way. He's the only one you ever hear from is the head coach.
Well, and it's, I don't know. It's about communication all the way around, right? Like, I mean, it's like this feeling of, somehow you're insular, that you can avoid, having these discussions with the people who matter, whether it's your own players or whether it's your fans who are paying the freight. I don't know. I don't like it. All right. Let's we're going to wait for a second. And when we come back, we'll be talking to Manon Rhéaume. I can't wait. Mike, we are back. And as promised, joined by Manon Rhéaume. And Manon, it's great to have you here. I was telling Mike earlier, I don't know if you remember, you and I spoke during the final in Tampa in 2015, I think. And you continue to do so much stuff. It's so hard to keep up with all the different things that you're doing. I know we were just chatting. You were in Nashville coaching a team and doing doing analysis and color for the Detroit Red Wings. Do you still do goalie schools? Are you still doing instruction as well in the off season, or?
No, I'm not doing any instruction. I think that it's too long time ago. So teaching my way to play now to young kids would not be the best. Obviously, I caught up with the new style with what the goalie does, but I always feel like when you want to teach something, it's always great to have experienced it. And without playing the new style, I let that to the young goalie coach. So I'm just in charge here in Michigan. Like I took over a girls program 6 years ago with Little Caesar, and it was really cool because I got to really build it from the ground up. And I coached the U12. So that's really where I started to build. And this year to see the girls that I started with at the U19, and I think I got 11 girls D1 college commitment, and 8 of them signed this year. The next 3 is going to be the following year. So it felt good to have been able to build the program from the bottom up.
It must be gratifying. That's the ultimate give back, I think, when you're working with kids, is to see them move on. And we've talked about this a couple of times because I have girls that are 5 and 8 years old, and I keep waiting for that moment for my oldest daughter, Kendall, who's 8, to meet you and to explain your story and to go through everything that you accomplished, because it's so unique. And what I love about it is that all these years later, you're still in the game. Okay. Ever since, you finish playing and you find a way to stay in the game. You're coaching, you're running Little Caesars women's program. And now you've moved full on into the media world and you're gaining more roles. So what's the transition been like now, moving on to camera, doing more interviews and just communicating the day-to-day aspect of what the Detroit Red Wings are doing?
It's been great, actually. And I think it's a lot to do with my kids being older. I think that when they were younger, I focused on being a mom. My parents always been there for us as far as like following us everywhere in hockey, and taking on any kind of like other role would have taken me away from my own kids. And but as they got older, when my oldest one went to college, it started feeling empty. And my youngest one now is going to be 15 this month. So they don't really want to be with mom as much anymore. So for me, getting those opportunities now and getting out of my comfort zone, do something different. Obviously, hockey is my comfort zone, but being in the media was something new for me, and I had to learn and starting from the bottom up, basically learning the way there. And I've been surrounded with absolutely great people at RDS. I started actually at RDS for a year, and I continue to work with them. And the Detroit Red Wings just happened this season. So I'm learning from the Chris Osgood and Larry Murphy and John Keaton and Trevor Thompson, and they're great. So it's fun to be working with that group.
Yeah, what's and I know those. I covered those guys when I started in sports. Covered the Red Wings in '97 and '98, and really true pros. Has it been different than you thought it would be to be connected to an NHL team as opposed to maybe at RDS, maybe where the scope is a little bit wider? What's it like to be focusing on a team, and especially a team that this year has really taken some significant strides forward?
It's been fun. You get to know the people, the player a lot better on a personal level on their play on the ice. And when you focus on just one team, I continue to focus with the rest of the NHL with RDS. So it's not like I cannot just watch a Red Wings game. But it's great to see. And I've been in Michigan for a while. So even if I was not in the media, I saw that rebuild, like where the Red Wings was really struggling, and they tried to make some changes. And when Steve Yzerman came in, for me, it's been fascinating to see how he built the team. We knew he had success with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I was really curious to see his approach. And I remember the first pick he made, I think it was Sider, and a lot of people was questioning, why did he pick him? And now I'm watching him play, I'm like, yep, he's a genius. That was the right pick. So it's really fun and fascinating to see this rebuilding and to see the success that they have this year, just picking up Alex Nedeljkovic this summer. How they did that, I don't know, but that was great. I knew Alex from playing in the Plymouth Whalers here in Michigan. He also worked with the same goalie coach and my son. They worked together. So I knew him personally. To have the chance to, and I covered him all year last year, being in a nomination for Rookie of the Year. And it's just been amazing for the Red Wings. And they have a young group of guys that really like each other and have each other's back. And they're having fun, and it shows on the ice.
I think that's a really unique aspect to yourself with your story, especially having your son going through the higher level hockey and now playing NCAA Division I. You cross paths with a lot of people. And like you mentioned, Alex Nedeljkovic, same goalie coach, knowing somebody on a personal level. I had a similar type of thing when I started to work with the Vegas Golden Knights, that I knew a lot of the players, and it's so nice to have that insight into them on that lower level, like when they've started, what's made them a goaltender, what's made them a good player. Nedeljkovic has taken over the crease in Detroit, and I'm not surprised. Scott and I have had long conversations because I'm a big supporter of Alex Nedeljkovic. What have you seen that's given him such success this year? I mean, to me, like, he's the guy there. 100%, and Grice is a good goaltender.
Yeah, I think he had a great year last year too. And I think one of the things with him, they were really patient with the Hurricanes. They didn't just throw him in the NHL at a young age. So he went through the whole like ECHL, and then he went to the American League and got goaltender of the year, won the Calder Cup, and went on to the NHL. And he took, as soon as he had a chance with Carolina last year, he took over, and he was really good. He didn't play, obviously played 24 game, I think. So he's short. Mm-hmm. That's why he's still, he can be a Rookie of the Year this year again. But I think that the fact that they were patient with him and he had success at every level is confidence. Like we see that in the NHL right now. A lot of those young goalies, starting at 24 years old. I think yesterday I was talking about the goaltender duo from the Calgary Flame, this young goalie, Dan Vladar, where he's coming from. Who is he? He went in the minors and played, and now all of a sudden he's getting a shot in the NHL. And I think Nedeljkovic, is a competitor. I know him forever. He played with the Plymouth Whalers where the team was not the best, but he was facing so many shots, and he compete. And if you remember, I don't know if it's the game against St. Louis, he allowed a bad goal. Mm-hmm. And after that bad goal, there's no way the puck was going in. He made save that you cannot imagine a goalie made, but that's the kind of goalie that he is. He's not the biggest goalie. I know it's crazy to think that a 6-foot goalie is a small goalie. Yeah. I would have never played in the NHL if that was a fact back then. But he's super quick. He's super smart. He can read the play very well. And people doesn't give enough credit of those goalies that are really good reading the play. It's so important. Not a lot of people talk about that, but I think that it's one of the key for goaltending. Those shooters are so good. You cannot just be a blocker. You need to be able to anticipate what's going to happen in front of you. And he's amazing playing the puck. He already scored 2 goals. If he scored in the NHL, he's going to be the only goalie that scored in 3 different levels. Yep. And that helped. Mike, being a goalie, one defense love you if you play the puck. I learned that in a hard way when I play pro. You better play the puck. If not, they're not going to like you. And it helped the team, like a lot of like offensive chances or getting out of the zone easy. So I think that's a combination of all that make him having so much success. And he's so humble. It's never about him. It's always about the team, and the team love him.
Yeah. So we referred to your son a couple of times. Dylan's at Quinnipiac. I'm curious about your relationship. You know, you're a hockey mom, but you're also a star or a professional goaltender, or one of, a tremendous high profile person. How have you balanced that with Dylan in terms of, okay, I'm just going to be a hockey mom, or do you talk shop with Dylan? What's that like?
I always wait for him to talk to me if he wants to talk about hockey. And obviously, if we talk about the game, having played a position, if it's about his goal or save or things like that, we understand each other. Mike, you know that too. Sometimes a goalie is going to make it looks like it's a great save, but it was really an easy save. And vice versa. Sometimes
those are the ones we laugh about.
I love
because we know,
great save. And you're like, really? No, that was easy.
We know.
And the opposite too is true, where sometimes someone said, oh, that was a bad goal. No, that was not a bad goal. Did you see like the screen that came in and out and different things? So those are the things that we're able to talk with each other that we get. Or sometimes like him having made a play behind the net, like turn the puck to his defense or whatever, totally made the difference for the next play, but nobody will remember that. But I know that. And to be able to talk with him about that, it's fun. And now my youngest one, he's a defense, and his aspiration is follow his brother's footstep to play for the U.S. national development. So I'm looking at the defense in a totally different way. And so, which has been a lot of fun too. So it's becoming my favorite position now, defense.
No, so I just before Mike, let me jump in. Just so now, when Dylan indicated he wanted to be a goalie, were you okay with that? And then with your youngest, what was there any discussion? Well, everyone's a goalie, or how does that work out? With that choice for your boys?
When it started, I was working at Mission Hockey, and my son was really young. I think he started skating at 2 years old, and they made me a cute little goalie gear for him. And at 3, he had the pads, and I thought it was the cutest thing. And when he started playing, he was doing both, but he didn't like changing every minute. So he wanted to be on the ice the whole time. It's like, I want to be the goalie. And I thought it was going to be fun at first. And the first time he played a state final, I think it was 10 or 11, I woke up in the morning with butterfly in my stomach and called my mom. I was like, am I crazy to be nervous about this? And she told me it's payback time. And that's when I realized I made the biggest mistake, because it doesn't go away. So my youngest one, he started as a goalie too, because he wanted to follow his footstep of his brother. And I'm thinking to myself, really, like, can you really choose something else? And he was doing both. And he finally decided to be a player instead of a goalie, because he always wanted his team to do bad so he can get more shots. And he said, Mom, it's like, I'm hoping my team is bad so I can get more shots. And I don't like to practice goalie, so I'm going to go play players. And that was the best decision, because I don't think I could have stomached 2 goalie.
Oh man, I think I'm facing that down right now. Both my daughters want to do it. The oldest one, 8, she had her first shutout, Manon. She played in a tournament, and she actually, how kids tournaments, sometimes they make like 2 saves and you're like, yeah, great job, kid. Like, she actually made rebound saves, combo saves. And I'm watching this because she was so bad in the first game and didn't even want to stop the puck. And then all of a sudden she got the switch flip though. She made a save. And it was like, I can do this. And I could see the joy in her face. And man, I tell you what, I always think back to what you did blazing the trail for women in hockey, and think of where women's hockey is at now. And I wonder what the future of it is. Like, you're actively involved in it with the Little Caesars program in Detroit. You're pushing girls into college hockey now. What's the landscape look like 5 to 10 years from now? Are we able to predict that?
I'm really hoping that we're going to have like a professional league where those women doesn't have to have 2 or 3 jobs to play hockey. You look around on the men's side, yes, so many different level of professional league where yeah, of course, in the ECHL or lower level, you don't make as much money, but you still can make a living of playing the game. Where on the women's side, the couple of pro league that they try, like you have to have another job. And it's not easy to have a job full time, train at that level that they're training, and thinking you're going to give the best, show out there. It's really hard. Like the best story that I heard, it's Marie-Philippe Poulin, the best player in Canada. And she was going to the rink, and it was about like 9:30 at night. And one of the person at RDS saw her coming into the rink when they were coming out of the rink. It's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, that's the only time I can train. I have to work all day. It was 9:30 at night. And, when you hear those stories, you're like, those are the best female hockey player in the world. They have to have a place for them to play, not just like every 4 years at the Olympics and at the World Championship. The women's game, it's different than the men's game. You don't have body checking. So you have a lot more like plays, like skills play that on the men's side you couldn't do because you would get killed if you try some of those plays. So I think it's a different game, and it's a fun game to watch. Even I had my son, my youngest one, this year watching the US-Canada game, and he started talking about some of the girls. Oh, that's a great move. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's following them on Instagram. And I think it's a great game for both male and female. And I look at someone like you, Mike, that's got 2 daughters. Like, now you see your daughter and you want them to have the same chance that you had. And that's how I look at it. My boys, they grew up dreaming playing in the NHL, and I'm coaching those young U12 girls, and I want them to have the same dreams. I want them to look up to someone, not just looking up to a player in the NHL like I had to do when I was young.
That's great stuff. Well, we'll let you go, but I'm so curious. I mean, September 23rd, 1992, I think that's the date, the first game with the Tampa Bay Lightning. You are helping young women and girls that maybe, I don't know. Well, let me ask you the question. Do they have a sense of your experiences and what you did, or are you just you're coach, or you're the person who's helping them here? Do the kids have a sense of what you've accomplished, or maybe they don't?
I don't know if they have a sense of what I've accomplished. I don't know if they can really understand. Even myself, I didn't realize how big of a deal it was until years later.
It was huge. You inspired me, right?
I know,
it wasn't just little girls. Yeah, it was young goalies everywhere were inspired by you.
But when I did that, I was not I was just going there I was giving an opportunity to play the highest level. And so many times before that, people said no to me because I was a girl to play the highest level. So I went for it. And that's all I knew playing hockey. That's all I was doing. So I didn't realize the impact my story would have on people. But I think those young girls, it's their parents, know about me and obviously talk to them about me. And when we go to a tournament and someone come up and they have a hockey card of me, and that's when they realize, oh, wow, they do care about my coach. Or I'm on TV doing the Red Wings, and they think it's really cool that, and again, I think having more female talking about the game it's good for those young girls, because I have so many parents that said to me, my daughter now is watching hockey, where before they were not watching hockey. So I think that when I told my girls that I was going to do that, and I may be missing a couple of practice during the year or a game, but I said, I'm hoping that for you, that's something that you look up to, and you said, I can do this too one day. That's when they're like, okay, it's okay, Coach Manon, you can miss once in a while.
Permission.
I got permission from them.
That's great stuff. Well, Manon, thank you for coming and hanging out with Mike and I, and it's terrific. Good luck to your girls team, and we're gonna be watching that Red Wing team. I think as of this morning, sitting in a wild card spot. How great is that? So
it's
thank
amazing.
You. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. It's been a real treat.
Thank you so much.
Me.
Mike, I don't have any daughters, but I feel empowered. I feel it was so great to chat with Manon, and it's such a positive force in the game. And I think it's cool that she inspired you. I think that's to me, that tells the story about what she means to the game.
Well, and I'll kind of go back to this. The background to it was Manon and I spoke several years ago when I was doing my own podcast, and she was one of the first people I interviewed, and I couldn't believe that she would talk to me first off. And because I mean, who am I? You know, just some Joe Schmo. And it's like, no, I know your career, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. But I told her that I grew up in St. Louis, a market that had never had a homegrown goaltender go to the NHL, much less be drafted anything. And I remember as a kid being 9, 10, 11 years old and seeing this woman play in the NHL. And she played against the St. Louis Blues in preseason. Yeah. And that's part of the mystique of why I remembered this when she was with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And it was like, man, like if she can do it, I can make it from St. Louis. Like why can't I, you know? And I always looked up to her, and just getting to meet her and be friends with her has been really amazing. But then I bring it to that next level of my daughters. Yeah. And I tell them, hey, my friend Manon, who did this, she played in the NHL, and my girl's eyes just light up, you know, and that's so important. And to have that, even as long ago as it was for her, it gives something tangible for girls to look at as an inspiration. And it did at a time when that really didn't exist. Now you can look up to, you know, today's Olympian women that are phenomenal athletes, the women that are in media doing a great job. But at that early period, man, she was really a driving factor for a lot of people. And the funny part is she says, I really didn't realize I had that effect. Yep. You know, it's super cool. And I'm so happy that she's a part of the game in the capacity she is now in media and coaching, because it's where she belongs, Scott. Like she's passionate about the game, great personality. I just think the world of Manon.
What? So just before we close, Hall of Fame? I mean,
well, Scott, they don't put goalies in the Hall of Fame, but she probably has a better shot than Tom Barrasso.
Okay, I knew I shouldn't have asked. No, but I meant.
But the trailblazer aspect is real.
As a builder, and I know the women who've gone into the Hall of Fame are Manon Rhéaume was an Olympian, won a silver medal in '98, and but yeah, I don't know how to, you know, where the fit is, because she's not. So what's the traditional women's hockey player? Like I think of, you know, Haley Wickenheiser, who, you know, straddled both the men's and women's games at different times in her career. But I just think her impact on the game, boy. Yeah.
Well, your key word there is impact. And if we're talking about builders, I see her in that light. Yep. But the Hockey Hall of Fame also took about 40 years too long to put Willie O'Ree in. So, and I'm not here to make it to beat anybody up like that at all. I'm just, I'm not sure that we always understand the big picture. Sometimes we're quick to put in, you know, I don't know. I mean, Pat Burns didn't get inducted until after he'd passed away, and that was an absolute layup, you know? So I question whether they will, but man, like, gosh, I'd like to see it, you know, just for the sheer factor of what she accomplished and how many people have been inspired by it. I would love to see it happen, Scott.
All right. Speaking of inspired, always inspired when I chat with you, my friend, and that was outstanding work today. And we'll do it again next week, as always. And thanks for another great show. Good job by you.
What a pleasure, Scott. This is the highlight of my week, man. We just get to sit and hang and talk. It's better. I tell you, it's way better than just trading emails constantly. We just get to ham it up.
I don't know if you noticed, I had to put my headphones on halfway through. The NC State basketball team was practicing. So you got a little ambient noise. There's no ice here yet, but tomorrow there will be. So anyway, next week, my friend, good job.
Thanks for listening to The Suitcase and The Scribe, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.